Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadeva, the Thunder Wizard. Welcome to the Thunder Wizard channel. This is the solar flash update for February 16th of 2024. We're going to talk about a couple of events, current events, which I think are very significant. I'm just going to barely touch on the farmer protests that are shutting down governments all over the world. But we're really going to talk about how you can replace your 3D identity with 5D. Hello and welcome back to the channel. So this is going to be a very interesting discussion. So I encourage you to stay, don't get distracted, because we're going to get into some really good specific things that you can do to replace your 3D identity with your 5D identity. And why is that important? What I've come to find out is that the third dimension is a video game. It is a virtual reality video game for the soul. So what ends up happening is that you get trapped in it when you forget that you're just here to play a game. And just like role-playing games, your character, which you create before you go into the game, you create a character, and the character has strengths and limitations, and depending on the rules of the game or the rules for the character, maybe you can upgrade, you can achieve other things, but there are limitations to what you can do. And so, you know, there isn't a character that you can, at least in the beginning, that you can create that has every single possible ability and magic. You can't do that. And the reason for that is the game wouldn't be fun. Nobody would play it if there weren't any risks, if there wasn't any challenges to overcome. It doesn't release any of the, feel-good chemicals, and the game wouldn't sell. And so that's the truth with human life as well. So the real question which I want to pose to you is, how far can you go in this three-dimensional video game? And can you break out of it? What can you achieve? So we're going to take a look at that, because what I've come to find out is that what you believe about who you are, what you believe about the limitations of your character, which usually are on a very deep level, you're not even conscious of it. These beliefs will determine everything you experience. It will determine the level of your happiness, the level of your prosperity, the level of your health, the level of everything. So you can stay your limited 3D avatar that you've created that can only do this and can't do that and can only go this far. You can stay that way if you want. The game is designed so that you will choose to do that. Or you can decide to just simply take the whole thing off and be in this game with all of the possible strengths and abilities that go far, far, far beyond what the third dimension is. And the reason why this is important is because it is my belief that that is how this 5D ascension will come. So I have nothing against the 5D showing up, whether it's the solar flash, which I'm a believer in, or whether it's an ascension or awakening event or evolution. I don't care. We can wait around for that. I personally don't like waiting around for things. I like taking action and changing things. So I have a question for you. Do you like your current limitations? If you could snap your fingers and get rid of your limitations, are you afraid? Do you believe, does your experience teach you that there are people and forces and energies that want to harm you? Has your experience taught you that you don't have any choice about whether or not you will be attacked or damaged by other forces. If that is your belief, you're not alone. That is a very, very, very common human belief. In fact, religion is based on those beliefs. So if you have that experience and that is your belief because that's your experience, I want to ask you a question. Would you change that? Would you snap your fingers and become omnipotent? Would you snap your fingers and become God? And you might say, yes, you would. But the very interesting thing is that many people, when you tell them that they have an opportunity to be free of fear, to be free of pain, to be free of illness, to be free of poverty, to be free of enslavement, their first response is to get angry and to tell you why that's not possible. So instead of telling you whether or not this is true or this is false, we first want to take a look at, what are our attachments? And I'm asking you a question to ask yourself. If you knew it were possible, if it was proven to you that it were possible to completely get rid of all your limitations and have complete, total mastery and control over this experience of yours, would you take it? Because it's interesting, if I come to somebody and I say, I figured out how to do that, it's very interesting how angry they get at me when I tell them you can do it as well. Basically, they hold on self-righteously to not just the belief, but to convince me that they can't, and how dare I? How dare I even suggest that they can be free of fear, free of pain, free of limitation? So sit with that. If you could, would you? And then if I say to you, you can, and I can show you how, are you willing to go through the changes and take the actions to accomplish it? So just live with the questions, forget about what's true and what's not. All right, we'll come back to that, and we are going to take a look at 10 ways how you can replace your 3D identity with a 5D identity. So forgive me for going on a little bit longer, but what I've come to find out, as a result of interacting with higher dimensional beings, as a result of the meditations, as a result of having my understanding of reality completely, totally destroyed, is that when we get outside of this third dimensional video game, when you find out who you truly are, you find out that you are much, much, much more powerful, that your true essence is that of a deity. Name whatever deity you want. The most powerful deity out there, that is you, outside of this third dimensional reality. And the only thing that keeps you in all of the limitations of your third dimensional reality is that you believe you are the character for your role-playing video game that you've chosen to take on. My role-playing video game is Michael William Denny. He was born in 1963, 5'9", blah, blah, blah. That's my character that I played. But that's not who I am. And who I am is for me to know. I'm not going to reveal that, but if I told you, you wouldn't believe me, because I don't believe it, at least in my third dimensional mind. But to the extent that I am willing to take that fifth dimensional deity identity that I experience when I'm outside of the third dimension, and I start to allow that identity to take over my 3D identity, everything on this third dimensional plane changes, including my physical body, of course my emotions, my reactions, my interactions with people, and even my physical reality begins to change. So we're going to talk about what that means and how you can do it, but I want you to accept the assumption, you can throw it away and go back to your assumption. You know, more than likely your assumption is that this is who you are. You're just this tiny little creature. You have all of these past lives, and this karma, which is punishment, has forced you to reincarnate. Or you believe that some higher being is forcing you to reincarnate, whether that's God or false beings of light. That's probably your assumption. So you're going to react to everything that happens to you based on that assumption. And if that is your assumption and negative, challenging things come to you, your only response is going to be frustration, anger, fear, depression, disillusionment. That's the only. Nobody's going to have a different experience than that. If your assumption is different, however, if your assumption about your reality is that you are much, much more powerful than this person you're experiencing, and then when challenges and difficulties and things hit you, you will respond from your higher dimensional self, which says, oh, well, I can overcome that. So it's very important that you understand what your assumptions are, and you must be willing to change them. Otherwise, nothing will change. Guaranteed, nothing will change if you don't change who you believe you are. So we're going to talk about that. Before we get into the things that are going on in the world today, let me just remind you that if you are new to this channel, here's what I need you to do. I need you to subscribe, like, and comment. If you don't do that, it makes it difficult for me to get this message out to other people. So I want your help to get this channel growing. Subscribe, like, and comment. Then, in order for you to truly get the most out of this channel, you can't just sit here and watch me. You have to go and do some things. So the first thing is to go to the free playlists page on my YouTube channel. Don't know how to do that? Just type in Thunder Wizard and find my YouTube channel page, and then go to the playlists. On those playlists, I want you to click on three playlists. The first one is called the Maoshan Qigong. That will give you power beyond anything I've ever seen in any other spiritual tradition. That's free. It's a free playlist. Second one is called Interdimensional Meditation. And the third one is called the 12 Steps to 5D. I want you to do at least one thing from one of those playlists every day. Again, this is so you can get the most out of the channel. If you're just here as a looky-loo, well, great, nice to see you. Go on to the next one. We'll miss you, but have a good day. If you want to completely transform your life, if you want to become a higher dimensional being, if you want to create a 5D reality, this is exactly what we are completely focused on, and I'm telling you exactly how to do that. So do at least one thing from each of those playlists, or at least one of those playlists every day. While you're doing that, you don't need to wait. Go to the website thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. That is, there's no prerequisites. You're ready to go now if you want to do it. That is, people have come to me and said, there's so much information in those playlists, I don't know where to start. Can you guide me from A to Z? Yeah, no problem. I've done that, and I do the practices. They're on video. You press play and just do them with me. That's all you have to do. There are multiple phases, and I guarantee you, if you do those practices with diligence and consistency, I guarantee you will begin to shift. What your experience will be, you'll find out. Protests that are shutting down the government. So I hope that you are paying attention to what's happening in the world. And it's mind-boggling. None of this is getting on mainstream media. I guess it's not that difficult to understand, but the farmers around the world, we're talking about Ireland, Spain, Germany, France, I don't even know where else, just all over the world. The farmers are shutting down the government. They are blocking all of the roads. They are, in front of parliament buildings, and they're lighting tires on fire, and they're throwing feces all over they've completely shut down the governments in many different ways. And so this explains why we're not seeing it on mainstream news, because as you know, mainstream news is nothing more than the propaganda arm of the corporate ruling class that is ruling the world. And so when the average person stands up against this fascist tyranny that we're experiencing, this makes them very uncomfortable. But what's so amazing is that, and again, it's, we're talking about a 5D Earth shift. And so it's not lost on me that the people who are closest to the Earth are revolting. They're making it impossible for these tyrants to rule over us. And just to let you know how this is happening, just to take Germany for example, as you know, we've got a war going on in Ukraine, which was completely 100% preventable. In fact, both Zelensky and Putin sat down twice to sign agreements that would have prevented war, that was generous to both sides. And the one party that nixed it was, you guessed it, the United States. United States, NATO, all of that, United Nations, they got together and said no. And they started pursuing having Ukraine be part of NATO, which is what Russia didn't want. And I won't get into it, but it's a very well thought out argument, if you understand it, that it would have been very damaging to their independence, their ability to function as a country. So, Putin said, if you do that, I have no choice but to protect my interests, which means going to war. And so the fascists didn't want that to happen because, here's something that I just learned today. One of the things that happens to a country when they join NATO is that they are then bound to only get their weapons from certain manufacturers, mostly from the United States. Raytheon, other weapons manufacturers. So this is the real reason one of the real reasons behind it is that they can get Ukraine in there, then Ukraine is going to be, have to buy weapons from the United States. And of course they make money off of being at war anyway, so it doesn't, weapons manufacturers don't make money during peacetime. So anyway, so Germany decided that they were going to give billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight this war that was provoked by Western countries. And so then they went to the farmers and they said, we took all of your money that was earmarked for you so that you could do your job to farm and give us high quality food and all of that. Since all that money has gone overseas, we can't give you that money, but you're going to be responsible anyway. You're going to have to pay us more money. You're still going to have to work for nothing. So in other words, they're making it impossible for these people to survive. They can't do their job and make money. And the reason for that, again, is when you take away people's food source, they're more easily controlled. This is why the World Economic Forum says you won't eat meat. People will be eating crickets. That's why they're doing that. This is why Bill Gates is buying up all of the farmland. Because if you own all the land and nobody's farming it and there's no ranches and no food production, then you have a way to control people. So this is what all this is about. But the farmers, these guys have been hamstrung. All of their resources have been taken from them, but they still have to come up with all of the same things, and their money is out the window, so it means they have to go out of business, and so they've decided to revolt. This is huge. The people of the earth the earth herself is responding to this. The earth herself is beginning to fight back. I also want to point out the weather phenomenon that's been going around the world. I do not believe that that is natural. I believe that that is manufactured. California went through what they call a 1,000-year storm. I've never seen anything like that. I lived in California for most of my life. I'm 60 years old now, and the vast majority of my life was spent there. And I can tell you that there's nothing about the weather that's been going on in California that is in the least bit normal. There's nothing natural about it. And another one is set to come. So you can, figure out what that means. I can't prove any of it, but it certainly has me thinking that perhaps HAARP has a lot to do with it, that there's things going on where humans have the ability to manipulate the weather. And the Earth will not put up with it for much longer. In fact, she's already begun to fight back. So there's your solar flash news clip. Now let's get back to what we're here to talk about, which is how to replace 3D identity with 5D. So, question your reality. Let me just bear with me for a little bit, because it's important to understand the assumptions before we get into it. I really want you, whoever you are, to take what I'm saying seriously. If you can grasp what I'm saying, and if you can put it into practice, it will completely, totally revolutionize and transform your entire existence on every possible level. I can't overstate this. If you just look at it, superficially and make some notes, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. But if you can really internalize this, if you're really willing to change the way that you think, to examine your beliefs, to take a look at your emotional attachments to who you are and what you do and what you believe, if you're willing to do that, everything can change, everything, including our reality, can completely transform. So before we get into this, it's important to understand that there is this thing called the unconscious mind. It is the part of your mind that really makes all of the decisions. It determines whether you're sick, whether you're healthy, whether you're strong, whether you're weak, whether you're poor, whether you're rich, whether you're happy, whether you're sad. It controls everything. And it is programmed. It is a programmable piece of your hardware and software, and it can be programmed to decide how you act towards life. To give you an extreme example, go on to Skid Row now and find drug addicts or alcoholics. If you were to sit them down and say, do you want to live this way? They would say, no, I want to have a home. I want to be able to eat. I want to have income. And if you say, well, why don't you do it? They say, I try, but nothing happens. Or if you say, why don't you just stop doing the drugs? They say, if I could, I would. I know I shouldn't. I know it's not good for me, but I just can't stop myself. So getting past the whole physical addiction thing, what is really creating that is an unconscious program. And it is not something that you can consciously overrun. Unconscious means you're not aware of it. This is a very challenging concept to accept, that there are things going on and decisions that are being made about your life that you are not aware of. People oftentimes will say, I'm not choosing to do this. And I would say, of course you're not consciously choosing to do it. The decisions are being made for you in your unconscious mind. So, not to overstate it, but it means that you are not consciously aware that deliberate decisions are being made which determine your actions. Also, which determine what you attract to yourself. I mean, there is some truth to the law of attraction. You do attract things to you. And it comes from your unconscious. So, be aware of that. There are things going on you're not consciously aware of. All right. So, replacing your 3D identity with your 5D identity. Again, the reason I'm doing that is because I've come to find out that the more that I replace my 3D identity with my 5D identity, which is very different, everything is changing. Everything. So I want to share that concept with you. So number one, make a list of all of your perceived limitations. And I list some examples that I would say: being short, being weak, being judgmental. These are the things that I, would, judge myself for. Being short, I'm only 5'9". Why that matters, I don't know. But I was a little kid. I was the shortest kid in school. I didn't grow until I got to be, around 15 or 16, and then I shot up to barely average size. So I still have this Napoleon complex. I think I'm too short. So that would be a judgment that I would put on myself. Weak, meaning, not being able to change reality, not being able to, make choices, to do things, to change things. And judgmental, that is something that I've struggled with. If you've been on my channel, you're aware of that. That judgment will come out in me. So that's just a couple of things that I would judge myself for as limitations. So make a list of all of them. So this means you're going to have to be honest with yourself. And, I'm no good at this, I'm bad at that, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, whatever. Just write them all down, all of the judgments that just come pouring out of you. Bear in mind that all of these are programmed. They were programmed into you by your parents. So there are at least two ways that the unconscious mind functions. By the way, there's a saying which is I found to be really important, which is, if it's over. You've already programmed them. So all of these feelings you have were programmed into you either directly, like somebody was telling you these things, or there was an energy that you picked up on that you could feel these things were being projected at you, whether consciously or unconsciously. This is why it's so important to be conscious, because your unconscious projections are what little kids pick up on. You may have never said to your kid, "You're stupid." But if you have an unconscious self-hatred, and if you feel stupid, you're projecting that onto them, and they will feel that. They'll think it. They'll believe that it's true. And understand that programming is a very important part of survival in this third dimensional video game, because the assumption is, in a perfect world, your parents are conscious and loving, and they program you to be self-empowered, to be self-loving, to have faith in yourself, and to be brave, so that when you go out into the world, you will have a program that tells you, oh, that's a challenge, I can overcome that, I can see these problems coming, I can do whatever I want, I love myself. You attract loving people, you're successful. But when that doesn't happen, the unconscious mind programs itself to align with whatever messages it's getting, because if you don't align yourself with the people around you, your unconscious mind thinks you will die. Way back in caveman times, if you didn't, and other places in the world, uncontacted tribes in New Guinea, if those little kids don't align and get the approval of their parents and their tribe, they're going to get left on a rock somewhere. They're going to die. So you end up absorbing whatever you're told, even if you know it's not true, even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it's painful, even if it's damaging to you, you accept it, because at least you'll be part of the tribe and you won't be left on a rock to die. In other words, your survival depends on your unconscious mind programming itself to align with whatever's being programmed into it. So all of this list, make a list of all of your perceived limitations. It's coming out of that. So all we're doing is we're looking, you're not saying that these things are true, you're just looking at what's been programmed. This is what was programmed into me. Number two, make a list of all the things you are not. You're not God, you're not omnipotent, you're not patient. Again, these are things that come out, first thing that comes out of my mind. And what I thought about this, because I've been watching a lot of Tucker Carlson. I was so impressed and so proud of, since he got fired from Fox, him being able to go and, educate the public on, what is really, some truths about Russia that we're not being told. Whether you like or don't like Putin, he's obviously a tyrant in his own way, and he's got a lot of things that are, nasty to look at. But there are truths about Russia and the dynamics that you're not being told. In fact, throughout my whole life, one of the interesting things about war, when it comes to United States news, is that you never hear about another country until the government wants to go to war with it. And then they will cherry pick something about that, whether it's true. Sometimes it's just completely false, but sometimes it's true. Like, is it true that Russia invaded Ukraine? Yeah. But you're not given any context. You don't realize that years and years and years they were seeking to create a compromise, and the people who nixed it was the United States. But you only hear about it, oh my God, out of nowhere, Russia, for no reason, just decides to invade Ukraine. Doesn't work like that. So I was listening to Tucker Carlson, and he was talking about how the way to wisdom is to know you're not God. Now, I get what he's saying about that, being willing to know what your limitations are. True wisdom is knowing, what you're ignorant about. But that hit me because, that's not what I'm being told by ETs. They're telling me that you are a God. So that's opposite. So write down all of the things that you think you're, or what is it that I've got here now? Write down, make a list of all the things you are not. You're not God. You're not omnipotent. You're not 100 feet tall. You're not, whatever it is. Write down all the things that you are definitely not. So now you have two lists. You have a list of your limitations. You have a list of all the things you are not. And then this next list, look at your limitations and ask, what do I gain from this? So, being judgmental. What do I gain from being judgmental? Well, so let's first define what you mean by what do I gain. In other words, nobody does anything unless they perceive that they're benefiting from it. The alcoholic who consciously knows that when he drinks, it's destroying his liver and killing him, and he can't get a job and he can't function. So he knows that consciously, but that's not enough to stop him because he believes that he's gaining something. It's totally irrational. It doesn't make any sense, but it is a perception and a belief that is so strong he can't resist it when it comes up. And so among the gains he would get from it is that it makes him feel better. It gets rid of all of the pain and the sadness. So the gain on one level is that it gets rid of negative feelings temporarily. If he were to allow to go deeper than that, what do you gain from it? Then we could uncover even more things. I know because my brother was homeless. Assuming he's not dead. I think he probably is, but assuming he is dead. If he could still be alive, but I seriously doubt it. But I lived with him. I grew up with him. And I know that, there's really no logical reason for him to have become homeless. I know that because as his brother, I knew of efforts that were made where if he had chosen to, he could have applied for, government help. He definitely was qualified to get enough money. They pay to get a cheap apartment. He'd get food stamps and free medical care. Those things were available to him. He chose not to take that. You have to ask, why would somebody choose not to take that? It's clear that he was deliberately making the decision to stay homeless. Now, if you were to ask him, he wouldn't have said that. He wouldn't have said, well, I'm deliberately choosing to stay homeless. No, he would go through a list of all of the things that prevented him from not being homeless, which turns out not to be true. So I got kind of lost in this, but again, my point is we do irrational things and we tell ourselves that we're doing it because we think there's something to be gained. If he were to go deeper into it, I know what he was gaining from it. Because I've looked at this in myself because I grew up in the same family, but also because I knew him his whole life. And he had a mommy complex. He could not tolerate the thought of not having his mother be there and take care of him. He wouldn't have said this. He may not have been conscious of it, but it was obvious. So he lived with my mom right up until he had to leave because she became, senile and wasn't capable of taking care of herself. And then he was forced to leave. So I know that if he actually got off the street, was able to get a job or was able to get some kind of income and be self-sufficient, in his psyche, he would no longer need his mommy. So he deliberately, unconsciously made decisions and took actions that kept him on the street because it left open an irrational hope on a deeply unconscious level that his mother would take him and take care of him, even though she was dead. But the point is that there was a perceived gain. So when you ask yourself these questions, be willing to go deep. It would probably take decades of therapy before my brother was able to come to that conclusion. It's easy for me to see because I'm looking at it from the outside. But you have to be ruthless with yourself. So look at your limitations. Short, weak, judgmental. What do I gain from being judgmental? I have to think about it too. It protects me. Because when I see weakness in others, that frightens me. So in order to protect myself of the possibility of being those people with their weaknesses, I instead judge them so that I can feel superior and different, and that can't happen to me. So the gain is it protects me. Protects me from being like those people I'm judging. Of course, that's not true, but that's the perceived gain. So I'm just sharing with you the process. That's what I've learned when I ask myself that question. So look at all the things you are not and ask yourself, what do I gain from believing this? So, for instance, you're not God. Well, I put that down, so let's say it's about me. What would I gain from saying I'm not God? I look good. It's called virtue signaling. Christians do this. Now, I was brought up Christian, so definitely it was hammered into me that I'm not God. And to even think that is blasphemy. If you think that, God will hate you. God will get furious with you because only He is God and He can't tolerate anybody else. He says there's no other gods but me. The Amish took it so far that they wouldn't put buttons on their button-up shirt because just to have buttons was too flashy. Basically the same thing. You're taking glory away from God if you have just even buttons on your shirt. That idea of I'm not God. Well, so one thing that I would perceive to gain out of that is false humility. Of wanting to be approved by others, wanting God's approval, not wanting to be punished. Those are things that you think you gain by not being God. Now, that doesn't mean that I am God just because I've looked at those things. Oh, that's why I tell myself I'm not God, and I look at that and I can see how irrational that is. It doesn't mean so. You just go through the exercise. Just ask yourself these questions. That's all we're doing at this part of the game. So look at all the things you are not and ask, what do I gain from believing this? Number 5, look at all the negatives in your life and ask, what do I gain from being this? So you see the difference? One is I believe I'm not God, and then there are the things that are actually there. For instance, when somebody is physically ill, they will, instead of saying, I have this, right? Which is sort of like that's something that's in your frame of reality. You know, people will say, you know, I have a cold or something. But when somebody says they are sick, they become that. So they will say, I am fill in the blank. Poor, sick, stupid, evil, I am. So look at the things that you are. So if you have money problems, are you poor? If you have health problems, are you sick? Are you handicapped? Are you depressed? Are you angry? Are you... Look at all of those things. List all those things that you would do that. And this, I heard of this from somebody who actually had become physically ill. And they were working with a coach, and the coach was saying, yeah, so you've manifested this. Now that's hard to accept. It's easy to say, no, it happened to me, instead of saying, no, I manifested it. So again, the assumption on all of this is you manifest everything. Whatever's going on with you, you manifested it. An injury, an illness, a state of being, you manifested it. Just accept that. Don't fight with that. Because if you make it that something did something to you, you're helpless and you won't be able to fix it. Because that thing had the power to, that outside force had the power to make you that way. And if that's the case, that outside power is the only thing that can fix it. This is why people pray to God. Oh God, please heal me of this. Oh God, please give me money. And nothing happens. Because they believe that this outside force has all the power to do it. And the assumption is, whether you choose to accept it, is that we created everything in our reality. So whatever your experience is, you created it. So if you created it, there must be a payoff. There must be something you think you gain. And this person was saying, you know, what do you gain from being sick with a cold? And the person said, I get sympathy. Oh. So they realized they manifested that illness to get sympathy from the people around them. So just be willing to take a look at all that. You can throw it all away later, but just be willing to just play this game and see what we get from it. So look at all the things that you are and ask, what do I gain? What do I gain from being this? Look at all the negatives in your life and ask, what do I gain from being this? Number 6, look at both of your lists and imagine the direct opposite. So the list, go back to the top, the list of all your perceived limitations, and we'll start with that: short, weak, judgmental. So number 6 says, look at that list and imagine the direct opposite. So short, weak, judgmental. So the opposite of short is tall. The opposite of weak is strong. The opposite of judgmental is compassionate. So now I know what the opposite of that is. Look at the other list. Make the list of all the things you are not. I'm not God. I'm not omnipotent. What was the other one? I'm not patient. So now do the opposite. I am God. I am omnipotent. And I am patient. We're just writing that down. We're just making lists, right? So I've written down all of the things that I think I am, right? All the things that I think I'm not. And now I'm just doing the opposite, and I'm writing another opposite list. I am God, I am omnipotent, and I am patient. I'm just writing it down. We're not deciding whether it's true or not. Because that's what you're saying. You know, when you say, I'm not God, I'm not this, I'm not that, then you are saying what it is you truly want to be. You really want to be the opposite of that. Otherwise, you wouldn't write it down. Because you're looking at the things you're not. There's a lot of things you're not. I didn't write down a plant. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not a plant. But I didn't write that down because it doesn't bother me. I don't think about it. It's not part of my my issues. Obviously, I've got a God complex because I wrote down I'm not God. Obviously, I want to have more power because I wrote down I'm not omnipotent. Obviously, I'm impatient because I wrote down I'm not patient. So these are obviously things that I want, or I wouldn't have written them down. So now, without saying that that's true about me or not, I just write down I am God, I am omnipotent, I am patient. All right, so write down, look at both your lists and imagine the direct opposite. Write down the description of your direct opposite identity. So now you've got an identity. My name is so-and-so, I grew up here, I'm this tall, here are the things, the limitations that I have on what you're describing is your 3D avatar that you created before you came into this virtual reality game. You're describing the character. Now the way that your character works is that once you're here, based on the perceived strengths and limitations you have, you react to life and make more decisions about your character. And so you continue to create the character. You say what you are, what you aren't. When you say the world is cruel, you've now created, without realizing it, when you say the universe is cruel, for instance, what you've said is that you believe that you are a victim, because only people who are victimized feel cruelty. So it means you're a victim. Now you've written that into your character. When you say the universe is an empty, cruel place, you've now written, I'm 5'9", I'm this, so I'm also a victim. Now that's part of your character, which means you will make decisions. A victim is somebody who doesn't have power. So when you realize you've created a victim, that's part of your character makeup. You've also said, oh, and he doesn't have any power. She doesn't have any power. That means that other people can do things to them and they won't be able to fight back or prevent it. That's now written into the story, it's written into the script, it's written into your character. And now it's unavoidable. And the theory is what you write about your character is what's going to happen in your story, in your three-dimensional video game. So write down the description of your direct opposite identity. Number 8, what of this description sounds like fun? So I would have written, make a list of all the things I am not. The opposite of that would be I am God, I am omnipotent, and I am patient. Those all sound fun. Especially being patient sounds like fun, because that means people can be as imperfect, according to my standards, and it doesn't bother me. In fact, I have compassion for them. That sounds like a very comfortable, empowering place to be, to not have other people's actions and behaviors and feelings, to have that not affect me, but still have compassion for them. That sounds like I would enjoy that. So write down when you, number 8, what of this description sounds like fun? And then number 9, write down new impossible description of yourself. So bear in mind, we're creating an impossible version. So at this point, you should be, the description of who you are, this fantasy description, should be completely unrecognizable to the other version. Because remember, the other version is what? The other version is based on the understanding that you are entering a three-dimensional virtual reality role-playing game, and your character has to have specific strengths and limitations. Otherwise, you can't play the game. Try going and playing a role-playing game online without having first created a character. You won't be able to do it. You won't be able to interface with the game. So you're taking a look at that interfaced game character that you made, completely scrapping it, and we're creating a brand new one, which you wouldn't have been able to create as you were coming in. You can only create this character after you're here. And just to let you know, this is the first time in history that humans are actually being given an opportunity to do this. The truth is that people have been able to do this throughout time, but only those very few who you hear about, which we call the Buddha, or we call, somebody became enlightened, or some biblical character, Jesus rose from the dead. Those are the only people who are allowed to do, assuming they're real. But the truth is, anybody could have done it. It's just very, 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 very difficult, pretty close to impossible. But every single one of those people, the Buddha, whoever it is that achieved enlightenment, Babaji, I guarantee you at some point they went through this process. Maybe they didn't categorize it the way I am, but they went through this exact process where they took their 3D avatar, completely erased it, and then created an avatar of who they wanted to be instead. And that shifted their frequency to such a point they left this reality. They're no longer part of it anymore. But for the first time in history, because we're going through this shift, all human beings are being given this opportunity. And this is why there are so many light beings that are surrounding the earth that you can access through interdimensional meditation. I mean, I've been doing it seemingly for so long, I've gotten used to it. It's just a part of my life now. When I go in to meditate, I know I'm going to go to a whole other reality that's completely different from ours, and I'm going to come back, struggling with how I integrate myself with that other reality. But even though I was in meditation and energy work for 30 or 40 years, I never had that level of transformation available to me. And so if you haven't done interdimensional meditation yet, I recommend that you do it. There are free guided interdimensional meditations on this channel in the playlist section. If you want the more advanced guided meditations, you'll find them at the 90-day challenge. But that is how you leave this 3D reality, at least on an astral level. And you're educated on what is really going on out there. Which, by the way, all other beings, all of the extraterrestrials that are coming to Earth, all of them live in that other realm where they can, they know who their true avatar is. They're able to accomplish all kinds of things, even if they're, incarnated in a physical body in the fifth dimension. They're aware of who they really are. And so they live in this magical, amazing world that we can't even comprehend. But for the first time in history, humans are getting access to that so that we can become that. So instead of, once every 100 years, a Buddha or a Babaji achieves enlightenment and shifts out of the third dimension, people are going to start popping out of this dimension like popcorn because they're going to have access to energies that weren't available to other humans. If other humans, I believe, way back when, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I could be wrong about this, but I get the feeling that if they tried to do this, they wouldn't get the same level of energetic connection. I only believe that I have the degree of connection with these beings that I do because of the role I'm supposed to play in this coming world. And so they have to give me all of this knowledge and all of these experiences, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do my job. But if that wasn't part of my destiny 100 years ago, there would be no need to take me through that. Maybe some angel would appear and say, oh, love is good and God loves you, and that would have been the end of it. All right, I'm going off on tangents. Oops. So write down new impossible description of yourself. And then 10, go into interdimensional meditation and create a new self in the quantum field. So this is, you could forget everything that I wrote up 1 through 9 if it's just too intellectualized for you. Just forget all of it. Just do number 10. Just go into interdimensional meditation, go to the quantum field, and then just decide who you want to be. And don't hold back. Whatever it is you want to be 100 feet tall, you want to have 6 heads, You want to be a trillionaire, whatever it is that truly, the thing is, it has to truly make you happy. Whatever the heck it is, just create it, because that's what's gonna be created for you. And you will be surrounded by beings that will help you with that. And if you ask for help, like I also recommend everybody do interdimensional meditation and ask the light beings to show you who you truly are. They will, to the level that you're willing and capable of handling it. Because if you were to see the average person, if they were to see who they truly were, their head literally would explode. It would kill them. So they'll give you what you can handle and still be able to stay in your 3D avatar. So the idea is to keep expanding, to get to continually shave off all the limitations of our unconscious assumptions about who we are and our identity, and letting go of our attachments, because we're attached to who we think we are. Letting go of those attachments, dying to those attachments, so that we have more room, we have more hard drive space to integrate who we are. Now, we'll never truly be able to integrate 100% of our God self. Even if we went up to 5D, it would be hugely more powerful than we are in 3D. But you still would be a smaller version of your 12th dimensional God self. And by the way, everybody is God. If you want to know the best definition of God, when you go to the quantum field and you see that light, everybody talks about it when they die. If you think that going to the light is a bad idea, well, then you're going to have to fight against thousands of years of Buddhist teaching, because that's the first thing that they tell you to do. If you read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the first thing they tell you to do is the moment that you leave your body, a light appears and you should go straight into it. The people who don't go into the light because they're afraid immediately become reincarnated. So it's the exact opposite of what you're being told. People say, don't go into the light, because if you go into the light, they're going to talk you into being reincarnated. That's the exact opposite of what happens. What happens is, if you don't go into the light, you immediately become reincarnated. You get pulled down through all of your unconscious and subconscious fears, and you get wrapped up in all the heaviness of that, and then you become so heavy that you incarnate. That's according to the Tibetans. That's not how I would put it, but so if you want to know what God is every single conscious being in every single dimension, in every single universe, all gathered into one place. And I've seen this to the level that I was able to experience it. Other people have gone there and seen, literally, they've come back after dying and coming back. They come back and they've said, I saw everybody there. Even if they've never met the person before, they say, I saw you there. Your soul is there. Your soul is perfect. And so that light is the combined light of all of the conscious beings that exist in all multiverses. That's God. So that means you're God. Now, you're not going to be able to fully live that as long as you're in a dimensional space, which we are, because that light filled with all of that consciousness wants to experience itself. So it sends out rays of consciousness into dimensions, the 11th, the 10th, and once it gets to the 9th, then it has to take on a body, the 8th, the 7th, the 6th, the 5th, not the 4th, because the 4th is time, the 3rd, and then there are demons in the 2nd and maybe a 1st dimension, I don't know. All right, so go into the interdimensional meditation and create a new self in the quantum field, and that's what this is. At the end of this video, I'll put this up so you can write it down. It's real simple, just do it, and then just keep practicing, you'll get better and better. All right, so again, if you're new to the channel, what is it? I need you to subscribe, like, and comment. I need you to go to the free playlist section, click on Mao Shan Qigong Interdimensional Meditation, 12 Steps to 5D. Subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong at thunderwizard.com. Look, guys, finances at this point are challenging, but I want you to have the practices more than I want you to make money off of you. So I want everybody to do the practices without feeling any kind of pressure. But bear in mind, what allows me to pay the bills and keep doing this is all the subscriptions. So you're doing me a huge favor. If you go and subscribe, it doesn't cost a hell of a lot. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. And I encourage you to do those practices, because those are the real things. If you really want access to, again, I'm giving this crap away. If you want all of my video teachings and certifications, which includes astrology and runes, healing, and even coaching certification, go here to 923.thunderwizard.com. In that bundle, I also have the most powerful practices, which I originally charged $3,000 for, which people paid. That is the 5-element Maoshan moving practices. All of that, you won't find anything even close to that, I guarantee you. Guarantee you won't find anything even close to it. And every time that you subscribe or purchase for yourself one of these packages, I'm able to pay my bills and stay here and keep doing this work. So I appreciate all those who do support the channel. All right, now that I've done business, let's go ahead and take a look. I'm happy to take a look and see what people have wrote, and we'll see if I'm able to be compassionate and patient with you. Thunder says hello. Travis Cup says he is God. Leela B, it would be, I encourage you to write out your thoughts in a full sentence. So tips for removing Archon attachment. That is, I don't know, I'm assuming you're on your phone, right? So this is one of the things that the deep state wants. If you've ever seen 1984, read the book or the movie, there's a thing called Newspeak, where they started taking away words and having people speak truncatedly, because if you don't know how to express yourself specifically and communicate specifically, you can't ever become upset. You can't ever revolt. Because in order to revolt, you have to have clear thoughts, clear intentions, and you have to be able to communicate them. Now, having said that, it's disrespectful to you. You are disrespecting yourself when you don't write out a full sentence. Because I'm not psychic. And if you want me to help you, and I do, then you owe it to yourself to write out a full sentence with a subject, an object, so that you're clear. Why? So that when I come to help you, I will have clear answers for you. So don't be lazy. You're only hurting yourself. I now have to try and guess what you're asking. You say, tips for removing Archon attachment. I'm assuming you're asking me to give you tips on how to remove attachments from the Archons. There's assumptions in there. The assumption is that you have been attached, that there is an Archon that is attached to you. So I'm here to tell you that if you have that experience, which could be a real experience, and this is a tip, it means that you have an emotional wound that has not been resolved. I used to be an exorcist, and I looked demons in the face. I've exorcised demons out of people. I've seen them come out of people. I saw a guy completely physically transform into a demon right in front of me. So I know that these negative energies exist. But here's what I learned. The people who have demon attachments, negative entity attachments, they only have them because there's an unresolved psychological wound that has not been healed. And that wound creates an opening in their aura, which allows entities to come in. Negative entities feed off of your negative energy. Your self-hatred, your fear, your anger, your feeling sorry for yourself, all of that. those feelings are a lower dimensional frequency. Demons, archons, any negative being is a lower dimensional frequency being. So they're pulling you down into their frequency with those feelings. And when you end up down there, then they can feed off of you. So first thing is to be willing to accept the possibility that you can be in a place where nothing can harm you. I'm currently in a, sort of a flame war communication with somebody on Facebook. I've got some Facebook videos on. And as you know, I've been interacting with extraterrestrials for 1.5 years, and I can tell you categorically, without any reservation, without any doubt, that there are no evil extraterrestrials. I could go into the physics of why it's impossible for a higher dimensional being to be evil, but I won't take up the time to do that. But besides that, I know from personal experience that they don't exist. So I do know that demons do exist, however. So this person really wants to convince me that extraterrestrials, or at least some of them, abduct humans and do horrible things, and that's because she had a bad experience in meditation. And I try to point out, well, there's a difference between going into meditation and being attacked by something and doing the CE5 protocols. You didn't get attacked when you did CE5 protocols. You did it when you were in meditation. I went on to tell her what I just told you, which is that if that's the case, it means you have unresolved emotional, psychological wounds. That's what opens the door to negative entities. Now, what she wants to believe, because this is her experience, but she also is attached to being afraid, because remember, what do I have to gain by being afraid? You'd have to ask yourself that question. What do I gain by being afraid? So until she's answered that question, she's going to believe that and be attached to the idea that this universe is an unsafe place, and that there are extraterrestrials flying around who have evil intentions. They're more powerful than you and they can choose to harm you. I can guarantee you that will never happen to me. Even if they existed, they wouldn't touch me. And that's because I know the energetic rules, why they can't. And so I focus my life to be in that energetic state where it's impossible for any negative being to come anywhere near me. Not only do they not come anywhere near me, if I go where they exist, they run from me. I don't have to worry about it. If I went into a haunted house, the ghost would run away. So never try and take me on a ghost hunting trip, because nothing will happen. So you want to have what I have, you got to do what I did. So my tip for you is to get rid of that belief that archons can attach to you. I mean, just the fact that you believe that, you're creating a lower limited frequency reality. Do you want that reality? Do you want to live in a reality where archons cannot attach to you? Great. Do the practices on my channel. Do the work that I teach you. You'll never have to worry about it again. Those are my tips for you. Wow. Chorus said they heard my chanting in the spheres last night. Well, that's interesting. I'm willing to believe the possibility that there is a version of me that's chanting this 24/7. I do chant it in my meditations when I'm out there, and sometimes I go into my deity state and I will chant it, in the astral realm. So I guess I have to assume it's possible that you could be hearing me as I'm consciously doing that. But another thing about mantra. Now, this mantra was given to me. The Huar, what you're hearing in the background is the Huar mantra. If you're not familiar with it, go look for it on my channel, Huar. It is the sound, the actual sound of the fifth dimensional ascension shift. That is the sound. If you were to record it, that would be the sound. So every time you chant that, you actually create that not only within yourself, but in the universe at large. But I didn't make that up. It was given to me. It was given to me by an ET that has taught me, who knows how long. And what's important to know is that a rishi, so in the Vedic tradition, a mantra comes from a rishi. A rishi is a shaman, a seer who sees the mantra. They don't make it up. They go into meditation, they hear it, and they come back and they chant it. And people hear it and they write it down and then they chant it. So I didn't make that up. It means that this is a frequency that is in the universe all the time, constantly vibrating. Whether or not your frequency is attuned to that particular frequency of the universe or not is another issue. So by chanting that, we shift our frequency up to that level of reality. So if you heard me chanting that, it could as well also just have been the universe itself vibrating at that. In any case, I'm happy to hear that. Ariel says, hello Mahadeva, sorry that I am just now tuning in. I look forward to listening this video in full in the morning. Thank you. You're very welcome. And thank you for all the work that you do. All right, so we don't have any questions, so we can just leave it at that. We'll go over it once again very quickly what we're doing here today. We're replacing our 3D identity with a 5D identity. Number 1, make a list of all your perceived limitations. Number 2, make a list of all the things you are not. Number 3, look at your limitations and ask, what do I gain from this? Number 4, look at the things you are not and ask, what do I gain from believing this? Number 5, look at all the negatives in your life and ask, what do I gain from being this? Number 6, look at both of your lists and imagine the direct opposite. Number 7, write down the description of your direct opposite identity. Number 8, what of this description sounds like fun? Number 9, write down the new impossible description of yourself that does sound like fun. And number 10, go into interdimensional meditation and create your new identity in the quantum field. That's it for me, my friends. Thank you for showing up. I love you all. And again, thank you to everybody who's supporting the channel. Thunderwizard.com, the 90-day challenge helps me keep my lights on and gives you access to do things that I've done on a daily basis. 923.thunderwizard.com, and of course my books. If you really want to understand what is going on with this light being extraterrestrial phenomenon, go to my books, which you can find at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth is one I recommend. The other one is Interdimensional Revolution. And the third book, I have many, but those 3 I recommend. The third one is The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. Get those books and memorize the last one. If you can memorize and act on what the last one is, your ascension is guaranteed. Thank you so much. I love you all. And as always, if I do not get beamed up to the Starship Enterprise, and or if the flash don't come, and or if I don't shift myself out of this frequency altogether, I will see you all very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves.